Are you too busy? Too stressed out? Unhealthy? Then this is the place for you. Welcome to Balanced Living for Busy Professionals, where we help you create wellness and balance with a holistic approach that will work for you, even with the busiest of schedules, so you can live the life you want. And now, here's your host, Diane Randall.
Hello, and welcome back to another insightful episode of Balanced Living for Busy Professionals. How to live your life and connect to your intuition. I'm Diane Randall, your host. Thank you so much for joining. And if you're new to the show, welcome. It's so exciting to have you here and listening. Each episode of Balanced Living for Busy Professionals will leave you with the best life-changing wisdom and inner tools with small actionable steps that sustain real change, even with the busiest schedule. And today's episode really reflects what our mission is all about. Tools and strategies to help you break free from any habits, patterns, and attitudes that may be keeping you stuck in place. And as you know, my intention for this show is to support you in creating the life you truly want. And with that said, today's episode is all about intuition, how to connect and align your life and career with your intuition. I'm so happy to introduce Wendy De Rosa, intuitive healer and writer. Wendy is the founder of the School of Intuitive Studies, where she offers programs and retreats for those looking to clear their energies and find spiritual healing. She's also the author of Expanding Your Heart, Awakening Through 4 Stages of Spiritual Opening, and how we can all open our hearts just a little more. Welcome, Wendy.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, I am just so excited to talk to you today about intuition. But first, tell us, how did you start your work in intuition?
When I was young, I didn't realize this at the time, but I was a very sensitive child. I was the oldest girl in a family of 8 kids, and I grew up in a big Italian family on the East Coast, and which comes with a lot of noise, a lot of yelling and screaming and food and the whole shebang. And but it also, in that being the oldest, I had a lot of responsibility, and I grew up the majority of my childhood being extremely sensitive, and not realizing that's what was going on. But I ended up kind of, I say, blowing up as a child. Like, I gained a lot of weight at a really young age. And I know that now to be protective weight, or just sort of empathic weight, meaning like I'm just a sponge soaking up everything that's going on around me. And then continued through high school, and I babysat. I had a nanny job, and I worked for 21 families in my neighborhood, and I was just this caregiver. And by the time I reached college, I had a nervous breakdown, and it had to do with the amount of energy that I had been taking on and the responsibility I had been taking on and the caretaking that my system was doing, not let alone my mind. And so I had this nervous breakdown, and out of it came this calling from within. It was literally a voice from within me that said to move to Colorado. And I was living in Boston at the time at school, and I decided, I heard that voice. I'd never been to Colorado, and to make a very long story short, I ended up making my way out to Colorado to where I found a healing teacher, and I was 20 at the time. Then I ended up studying with this teacher who helped me understand that what actually is happening is that I have this intuitive ability. And there are, and not to jump too far ahead here, but there are 4 levels of intuition, which are clairvoyant, clairaudient, claircognizant, and clairsentient, which are very metaphysical terms for seeing, hearing, feeling, and knowing. And some people have 1, and some people have 2, and some people have all 4. And I'm one of those people that has all 4, which to somebody who doesn't know that translates as completely overwhelmed. Like, I was just overwhelmed sensitively and had overwhelmed my sensitivity and my energy system. And so I trained with this teacher, and I had no interest in ever doing healing work, but I was referred to. I mean, I guess I was good at it pretty early on, and I was referred to a lot. People just kept calling for sessions, and by the time I was 30, I had over 500 phone clients and in-person clients. Never doing any advertising. It was all word of mouth. From there, it started teaching classes. People wanted to learn how to do what I do. And so I started to branch out from there and develop training programs.
Interesting. So how can busy professionals tap into career, calling, purpose, and meaning with intuition?
It's great that you're doing this, these kinds of tools, because there is a calling right now in the universe, in time and space, in the world right now. We are being called to step into who we're here to be. And so I wrote a book about this, and it's called Expanding Your Heart is the name of the book. And it's really about how we are being called from our hearts to show up in the world with more purpose, more meaning, that we're doing meaningful work. Like we're not just doing a job to pay the bills, but leaving our soul like hung up in the closet. We're actually integrated and doing our life's work in the world, or at least living in what we do, or we're living with purpose and meaning. And so there is this great call right now in the universe that we all step up and show up in the world in this way. And so when it comes to intuition, part of that is really tapping in to your heart and listening to what your heart is asking of you to do. What am I here to do? How am I here to show up today? And what's interesting is a lot of people will say, well, I'm in my head a lot. I can't, my head goes and races. And that's very common for that to happen. But the head racing is actually it's a distraction from the heart, when in fact what it really means is that the body really needs to ground, like very, very deeply, slow down, drop into your body, and get very connected to your heart, because we maneuver through life from our mind or from our head, but the head does not satisfy the heart.
Right.
So if we're doing things from ego or from head, if I get this task list done, I'll feel okay. But we all know, those of us who are busy professionals, we know that task list does not end.
But what I hear you saying is you have to slow down in order to hear and see, maybe not necessarily with your eyes, what may be calling you.
Yeah. Yep. Slow down and see, but also tune in.
Okay.
So part of intuition is about closing your eyes, taking deep breaths, and tuning into your heart center. I mean, there's other areas we can tune into, but the heart is usually the one that we feel the most. We feel our intuition through the most.
Okay, so if I am someone and I meet people, a lot of people that come to my workshops or that call me, and they are happy, they have careers, they're making enough money, they've been in their careers for years, but there's a yearning and a feeling that there's something else, that this is not it, this can't be it. So what do you say to people that have that yearning and they have no clue of where it's coming from? Because I thought if I had all these things in my career, then I could be happy. But now I have this gnawing, this discomfort, this feeling like I need to expand in some way.
Yeah. I'm going to give a perspective that might seem a little unusual, but
Okay.
because it requires visualization and tuning in. But what it is that in our energy system, in our energy body, because we have a physical anatomy, but we also have an energetic anatomy, and we're not always taught that in the anatomy classes, but we have this energetic anatomy, and part of the energetic anatomy are these power centers, which we call chakras. And each power center in the body has it has a power in it, and it also has a shadow side to it. And I'm not going to go too much into that.
Okay.
But the power centers in the body are where it's where we get information about who we are and what our purpose is in this world. The heart center, it has a front side and a back side. It's like all the other power centers. They have front sides and back sides. When people ask me, what's my purpose? I am not feeling fulfilled. I am not showing up here on this earth, and I'm not doing what I'm here to be doing on this earth. I have them breathe into the back side of their heart. And I'm just going to give this example right now. So if you can imagine that you have this beautiful green light, glowing ball of light in the center of your chest. Green is the color of the heart chakra. And through the front side of your heart, you're giving and you're doing and you're feeling, and a lot of your personal energy is going out through the front side of your heart. And at the end of the day, it can feel exhausting. It can feel draining to just, give and be activated in the front of the heart, very active. Well, we also have this back side of the heart. And so if you can imagine that there is this waterfall of light that flows down through the crown of your head, the top of your head, flows through your back. It flows through your front too, but you are leaning into the back side of it. And that flow of light is your creative genius. It's divine love. It is pure healing light. It's replenishment. It's source. It's higher knowing. And you're taking that light in through the back side of the heart to fill you up. And when we get quiet enough and still enough to focus on that light coming in through the back side of the heart, we start to get the intuitive hits of what we are called to do. And sometimes that calling is really big. Sometimes that calling is, start this company or make these changes in your company. And sometimes that calling is go take a bath. Go do something that is going to, relax your body right now. Sometimes it's very simple. But the reason we focus on the back side is because the front side is a lot about our personal energy and how we're exchanging in the world. And we can deplete that and get very fatigued and run down.
Right.
We can also feel resentful if people don't give back to us in the way that we want them. Essentially, another way of saying this is the front of the heart is conditional love, and taking love in through the back side of the heart is unconditional love.
Oh.
We're filling ourselves up so that we can give more from a higher, cleaner energy.
Oh,
does that make sense?
Yes, I love that.
So that intuition is, just tuning into the receiving light through the back side of the heart and meditating or tuning in and breathing into what is sparking back there? What are the visions? What are the ideas? What's the heart calling? How am I here to show up?
As I heard you say earlier, yes, it makes sense. It's just a matter of slowing down so that you can feel, hear, and experience what you just talked about.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That is so awesome. So what do you say to people who say, okay, I just listened to that beautiful meditation and I'm just stuck in place. I'm just stuck. I can't feel my heart. I can't feel my heart. I'm not able to tap into it. It's almost as if something's blocking my ability to tap into my heart.
Yeah. And you just named it. Exactly. It's something is blocking. So when we start to really tune into our system, some of us, block our own intuition because we're afraid of what our intuition is going to say. And sometimes we project that our intuition is going to say something that we don't want to hear. Like, it can be very scary to tap into, the intuition is going to say something I don't want to hear. But ultimately, really, what that fear isn't so much about what the intuition is going to say. It's about the feelings that I'm going to have to feel in order to move them out of the way so that I can hear my intuition more clearly.
Got it.
So let me back up to say this. Yeah.
Okay.
So I mentioned the front of the heart being this place where we show up in the world and we give and we receive through the front of the heart. Well, the front of the heart is also where we hold on emotionally. It's where we hold the emotions of other people. We hold our own protection, our own feelings. So if we're going to tune into our hearts and tune into our intuition, we're also going to feel some feelings that might be there.
Okay. And that's why you call it conditional, the front of the heart. Okay.
Yeah. The front of the heart. But the other part of another piece to mention about this is that we live in a society where we're trained, conditioned that emotions are bad. They're wrong. It's wrong to feel grief. It's wrong to feel anger. But they're actually very human emotions, and we're never going to escape them. So part of this is also allowing ourselves to have compassion and awareness and permission to feel the feelings that are there without making them wrong.
Right. And that's so awesome, because that's the work that I do, is to help people to check inside and experience those feelings so that whatever's not supporting them, they're able to release those emotions so that they can show up more fully in what they're called to do.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And just a little tip about the emotional process from in my work is that if we ignore the emotion gets stuck and bigger. If we look to the emotion and turn to it and breathe into it, it actually dissipates more quickly. So it's counter to what our mind tells us. It's like when we give our emotion attention, it actually starts to move out of the way.
Wow. So tapping in and giving attention to that emotion helps us to live more fully.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what happens when this is the work I'm doing, but what happens when there's other people around us and we're taking in the energy of other people? Is that similar? Does that energy go through the heart from a conditional level?
It's not necessarily always the heart. So Our intuition, I mentioned this in the beginning, there's 4 levels. Our intuition works in 4 different ways in the body. And it's seeing, hearing, feeling, and knowing. And the feeling one is called clairsentient, or another word for that is empathic. So I or anyone really could feel the energy that's going on around them. So I do a whole webinar on this subject because it's actually a little bit complicated, but I'll try and be brief in this and explaining it.
Okay.
Empathic intuition has everything to do with the second and third chakras in the body. So that is the pelvis and the navel. That area of the body for both men and women are very sensitive areas that we pick up the energy. I should say it this way. We intuit the energy around us. It's actually part of the job of those power centers to feel into our environment and give us a sense of, what other people are feeling and what's happening in the world around us, because it helps us make adjustments. It directs how we're going to be in relationship with that energy. If we were raised as young children to not be able to have our emotions, or even worse, if we were raised to take care of other people's emotions, meaning parents weren't owning their own emotions and instead crossing our boundaries and kind of, yelling and screaming and fighting, or if that was happening, or even withdrawal, or if there was something going on in the family unit that essentially did not develop strong sense of self in the lower power centers, then what happens in the energetic body is we start to move out of that area. We actually do it as a self-protective measure. We pull back in that area of the body, and the second we pull back, we leave a vacancy.
Wow.
And when we leave a vacancy in that area of the body, the way the law of energy is if you move and if you displace energy in one direction, something else will come in to fill that space. And so what happens is I might have experienced a extreme amount of oversensitivity as a kid, which put me on hyper alert about energy around me, and I move back out of myself because it's not okay for me to be empowered in my center. So there I am now absorbing the energy because I've now backed up in myself.
Wow.
So how we stop taking on the energy of others truly is about stepping into our power. It's about letting ourselves have our feelings. It's about being clear in who we are. It's about being honest, being in integrity, being clear and direct about our feelings with our partners, with our life, with our job, with our family, and kind of really getting out of really messy power dynamics with people and learning how to expand your light in your second and third chakras. I'm trying to be brief about this because there's a lot. There's a lot more explanation that goes into this, but I'm trying to give a overview.
Okay.
But does that make sense?
It really does make sense. And thank you for sharing that, because that's always a question. Yeah, I'm able to focus and, work on my process. But what happens when, there's other people's energy that comes into play? So that was a very good overview. Thank you so much. Wendy, I really want to thank you for being here on Balanced Living for Busy Professionals, sharing your wisdom and intuition and how we can use it to figure out what our calling is on the planet, what our purpose is here, so that we can live our lives more fully. I want to thank you so much for all the information that you've shared with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. And if people want to get in touch with you, can you share your web information?
You can reach me through my website, schoolofintuitivestudies.com. I'm also on Facebook. It's facebook.com/School of Intuitive Studies. And I would love to connect. So feel free to reach out, and you can check out also my programs and offerings on my website.
All of Wendy's information will be in the show notes for this episode. I want to thank everyone who's listening. And if you have any questions about this episode, leave a comment or a voicemail right here on the Balanced Living for Busy Professionals website. I want to thank everyone who's tuning in. Have a nice day.
Thank you for listening to Balanced Living for Busy Professionals. This podcast is sponsored by DianeRandallConsults.com. If you like this show, the best way to support it is by leaving 5-star feedback on iTunes. And please feel free to email your questions, comments, and suggestions to feedback@DianeRandallConsults.com. Until next week, namaste.